Welcome to the game room.
Folks, welcome back to the channel. I'm Sean with the Game Room by Texas Gamer Geeks, and we are here with Matt Burns, the guy who created the fantastic Don't Look Back horror-based
Hi, everybody.
tabletop game. Matt, how are you doing? Thanks for coming on.
I'm great, thank you. Thanks for having me. I love getting to come and talk about gaming with different people about, whatever it is. But Don't Look Back, obviously, is a passion.
It really seems to be. I was first blown away by, just the artwork and stuff that went into the rulebook itself. I mean, a lot of rulebooks are just, here's some paper and some pictures and stuff, but the rulebook itself is just really cool, and it really just kind of sets up the whole atmosphere of the game itself. Tell me...
that stuff was... Go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead. No. Sorry, there's a delay, so go ahead.
I was just going to say, it was actually Ben at Black Site made all of that art. So he actually created all that, did all the photography, everything in there was all Ben, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. It's a great looking rule book in itself. Hey, so for those that are not fully aware of what Don't Look Back is, what is Don't Look Back miniatures game?
So Don't Look Back is a cooperative skirmish game. It's for solo or up to 4 players playing cooperatively. Takes place in your kind of slasher horror 80s, 90s sort of a setting. But it's designed to allow players to create their own stories, their own world, or sort of recreate their favorites, whether it's a graphic novel or a horror movie, whatever that setting might be. And it pits your cast of characters against a AI-driven killer, which can take on all sorts of different forms and abilities.
So one of the things that I noticed out of the game originally when I first started playing with it is it does just kind of capture the feel of a horror movie. So what brought this about? Just like, were you watching a horror movie one day and said, hey, this would make a great game? Or, how did this come about?
Actually, it's a pretty funny story. So while I enjoy the horror genre, I am not like the most informed and know the history of it and all the details that kind of go into the background of it. Ben and Connor at Black Site, actually, we were talking about working on a game together, and we started with a different one, and then Ben is actually kind of the big horror guy, and he was like, it would be really fun if we could do some kind of a cooperative horror game. So why don't you see what you can do with that? And I actually stayed up all night that night. So it was about, I don't know, 10, 12 hours of just like sitting at the computer and writing, and Don't Look Back sort of came in its initial form just from what I enjoy and what I thought would kind of capture sort of the broader aspects of it to then let players kind of come in and create specifics how they want to.
So as we were, my son and I especially, when we were really kind of playing through it and looking at the visages and the MOs, I was like, you could really apply this to most of your slasher horror genre there is. I mean, you can definitely pick out, I'm gonna name a few, you can definitely pick out, which ones would make a Jason, which one would make Michael Myers, which one would make, from The Ring, can't remember her name. You can go down the whole line and say, if you put this, and this, you have that character. So was it, since like you say, you're not really big into horror, what kind of brought up those? Was it just, hey, watched a few horror movies, kind of picked these different things out, or what got those different visages, and how was the killers themselves? You come up with here's the 3 parts. Does that make sense?
So what you're just saying about wanting to be able to create anything that you see in a movie with sort of what's there. I just sort of went back and just thought about like the movies that I enjoy, movies that are kind of classics. I mean, really, there was a lot of also just Googling to remind myself, like, let's just look up like all the famous kind of horror movies. Let's see kind of what they have in common, and then what can be kind of put together to create these different killers, or at least create the tables so that you can sort of generate them, and just make sure that from the get-go, all those elements and all those pieces are covered so that you can make whatever it is that you want, whether you roll it randomly or just decide, hey, we want to play this tonight. Let's put this, and these two traits together, this visage, this MO, these two traits, and let's just make what we want.
So when we were, like my son and I were originally playing, he kept complaining, this is too easy, this is too easy. The killers aren't doing enough damage. So I told him that. I said, okay, go through here, find out what the worst things are, and we'll play that. We did, and it was very bad for us. But you can kind of play with it and just kind of make up your own killer, which is really because one of the mechanics in the game, for those that aren't aware, is when the killer is revealed, you roll the killer up. It's so the scenarios will have a predefined killer which kind of fits with the story, or you can generate him on the fly. Was that something that y'all just kind of came up with, or was that there from the beginning? How did that come into it?
That was actually from the get-go, was kind of what I wanted to have happen, because what I like about horror movies is that the characters don't always know what's coming or what's happening. And especially when you have an AI-driven game, it can very quickly become like a sequence of I do A, then B, then C, because you know what's going to be coming. So if we know that the killer has this particular MO, let's make sure we have people split up in these certain areas, and you can really kind of, game what you're going to be doing ahead of time. But when the killer just shows up and you have no idea what they are capable of or are going to be doing right away, it creates that tension at the beginning of the game as you're starting to explore the board, heading towards points of interest, looking for your missing friends. That tension's building, and you don't know when or what is going to be showing up. And I think that's a lot of fun, and kind of creates that scare, that moment for the players.
Yeah, I agree. I think it does, and you've captured it very well. Some of the other horror games that are out there tend to deal a lot with like zombies and stuff, but ones where you actually have a killer who's running around, and it's not character controlled, it is controlled by the AI, is really kind of a neat piece to this whole game.
I'm glad that you enjoy it.
Yeah, it's my pocketbook does not enjoy it, but I have been, because I think if the shipment arrives tomorrow, I think I'll pretty much have everything or almost everything that y'all have released for the game already. Which brings
Awesome.
me to another question. The game came out in October, literally 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And how was the reception when the game first came out? I can kind of guess because of the number of expansions that are coming out at literally record pace. I mean, you're on par for one per month since.
Mm-hmm.
But what was the original reception? Because I didn't even know about the game until February, when I kind of stumbled across it.
It was, so when we first made it and we were designing it, and Ben was like, let's create this horror experience. We were really excited about doing something co-op, because that's kind of what we enjoy. We kind of like to play with our friends instead of against our friends. And the solo experience, with COVID, going on right now, also allows people to be able to participate in gaming and hobby and do something constructive and creative on your own, or just with the family members that you have at home. But we were originally, it was designed to be much more of a handmade, bespoke kind of an item. We were really like, it'd be really cool if we sold 25 or 30 of these. We were originally looking at boxes and packaging, where we were going to be kind of like adding blood effects to the box and doing like some hand painting for logos and things on it. And it went up for pre-order, and the reception was amazing, and we're so thankful for the support that it's gotten. But it very quickly had to move from, let's just make this item, we're going to make each one of these, to it kind of had to become a packaged product, for more of a mass sale. So it was really amazing. The reception was great. We've learned a lot from that initial process. and it's just been a really exciting adventure.
I was amazed. So I did, from when I first found out about it, I kind of stumbled across it, and I looked at it, and I was like, what is this co-op horror game? And then I looked up, and that was my first real contact with Blacksite Studios. I was like, hey, this terrain is really cool. Let me see the game. And I was immediately like, okay, this looks great. I got to have it. And went to order it, and it says back ordered. And I was like, wait a minute, what gives? So I messaged Blacksite, and they basically said, it should be in, put in your order now because they'll be out. And I have noticed that about once a week, every other week I go back, the starter boxes are always out. They come in, they're there for a day, and they're out quickly. So you have something here that people really seem to be enjoying. And hopefully this week that we're doing here will help get that out there and generate more interest in it, because it is a fantastic game. The models are great. I've really been blown away by the resin models, really some of the better ones I've seen. I mean, I've seen a lot, and these are really good for not being mass produced.
Mm-hmm. The guy who does our casting is, he's a really great guy. He's in the United States, and that was sort of a goal too, is to get as much product created and made in the United States to, support local infrastructure and manufacturing as well. There's some things that we just can't get in the United States, like the VHS cases. I mean, because they're not something that many people use anymore. That's something we have to source from overseas, because there's just not a lot of that product available, other than at a collector's price is what people will sell them for.
Yeah. And those are fantastic. And in every unboxing I do, I keep geeking out over the VHS clamshell. I think that is fantastic. It really brings back the 80s, early 90s genre of here. This is set back in these times. It was funny. Like Denise, I want to talk about the characters. Denise has Daddy's cell phone, and somebody's like, "Why is it Daddy's cell phone? Every kid has a cell phone." He says, "No. This is set back in the late 80s, early 90s. Not every kid had a cell phone, and so keep that in mind when you're playing it." And it really brings back those movies. So if you loved the Halloween series or Friday the 13th. I mean, this is it. You can literally play it in an evening and have a total blast. So I heard on one of y'all's Twitch streams that the characters in the main box are all based off of real people. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, so we, again, like the sort of the design space for me creating it was that I wanted to have your kind of tropey characters. So every character sort of fits within a certain character archetype for like a horror movie. But then the game is set in the fictional world of Northwood. So you can play the jock and just, you can make him or her whoever you want. But then there's, Max the Abs is the actual character from Northwood. But all of them are loosely based on friends and family and just people that I know that sort of fit into also those different tropes as well. So it's kind of fun for me to create a new character or a piece of Northwood and kind of base it on something that I know is familiar to me. And it lets me kind of get into the lore a little bit more for those characters. And for people who want to sort of pursue that avenue. But then again, you can also just say, I just want to play this as the jock and make your own story, paint them how you want. There's that kind of divergent aspect of it as well. But yeah, they're all people that I know.
That's awesome. You see one of your friends say, "Hey, wait, that looks a lot like me." So let's see. What else did I want to ask you about? I really did not have an agenda. I just really wanted to talk to you and just kind of let you know that the game is fantastic.
Well, thank you.
We've enjoyed it. We've introduced it to some other folks at our local gaming store. They loved it. It's amazing how anybody who has even people who haven't really been into the horror, look at this and say, "Hey, wow, that's really cool." Like one of the things that I totally geeked out over, a knife as the measuring stick. I mean, this was just brilliant. And it really kind of brings in the whole horror. I mean, we've actually had people stop and look at it and say, wait a minute, what this game is this? And so we'll talk to them about it, and people were really interested, because it's not really something that you're used to seeing. It's a war game, skirmish game, you're fighting each other, but it's a co-op, and nobody plays the killer. The killer is, AI driven, as you said, which is really a neat piece to the whole game.
And I think one of the things that I think is also unique about the game, and what we really strive for, and how you're saying, like your son said, like the killer isn't doing enough damage, or the killer isn't killing us. The game is also designed to be about the story and the experience that you create while playing it, and not necessarily about like the body count, or the killer showing up and always targeting the same person. It's about creating those moments where maybe the killer's coming after one person and kind of harassing them and injures them, and then somebody else on the other side of the board triggers something that upsets that killer or sets them off, and they kind of start the hunt anew and go to terrorize that person. So we really want to have players focus on creating moments and scenes and elements within the game that they enjoy and they sort of storytell about. That to us is more important than like, I won the plot, or the killer didn't kill all of us. And I think one of the things that's been amazing about our community is then we've gone in and created bonus materials. So like we've added a tireless trait in the download section. So if you want your killer to be more brutal and to kind of follow the same person and really finish somebody off, then you can go ahead and add that in as a third trait. But it's the storytelling and the narrative that we really enjoy, whether we win or lose the plot, or if you can't even finish the plot, then hopefully there's at least something before you guys have to finish playing that you could be like, it was really cool when we went in the house and the killer jumped out of the closet, and started stabbing Seth to death or whatever it could be.
One of the criticisms that I have seen on it is the complaint about the rule book is not laid out as well as people would like. And to a point, I agree with some things. It's not as easy to read as some rule books. But what I have noticed is if you think about a horror movie and you follow the rule of cinema on page 2, what would make a great cinematic moment versus what should I do? I was kind of playing around with it a while ago, and Sandy moved up to the woods, made a jump scare, and it rolled lunge, and I put the killer right there, and I was like, okay, well, she could make a long action and she could attack. I was like, but cinematically, what would really happen? She'd freak out and jump back. And so, then it's like, okay, let's do that rather than, oh, well, now I'm going to pull out my gun or my machete or whatever and attack, because that's not really what would happen right there. You didn't know it was there. And when you kind of play it in that mode, you're right. You really start to create your own movie on the tabletop. It's really it's a lot of fun. And I think that's what really starts to draw people into it.
Yeah, we really want people to play the scene or play the movie and not just play the rules. Like creating your story and the narrative that goes along is way more important than whether you use their MO right, the killer's MO. I also highly encourage people to take the plots that we've written and peel pieces out of it and add them into other ones. Go back and play Well in the Woods, but add something from one of the other plots and just stick it in there. The worst that happens is it's not what didn't work the way you want, and you just play again next time.
Right.
I want people to try things and do new things, and all the expansions and the rules and like the card expansions that came out and will be coming out are designed in a way for you to use them however you want. I mean, you don't have to use the search tables if you don't want to. We've done where we play on stream, we just shuffle the deck up and draw one out. Exactly. Or put some random things out on the table and let people go and, whatever it is when they get there and search, that's what the item is. I mean, play it how you want. Create the story and the game that you want to play with your friends.
So really, as you've put it, you've kind of just created the structure to take it and run with it and do whatever you want. And and I really have enjoyed that part of it. Now, I have not actually had a chance to play the expansions yet because we've been just playing through the main rule book. We've only played, between me and the friends at the gaming store, we played 3 of the scenarios, and we're trying to get through them before we jump into the expansions. But the expansions all have what are we gonna call it? They have a theme. So you've got the aliens, and you have Leatherface, and you've got and it was funny because the one with the demon and the priest, when I first looked at it, I was like, is this Curse at Oak Hill? I was like, it looks like it's an opera because of the way he's saying. And then when I got it and I looked at it, I was like, oh, it's a preacher and it's a demon. I was like, that's really cool. And you have to figure out the 3 names, of the demon. Were these always there? We always had this plan to do these expansions this quickly, or is it really just demand, or is it, where are these things coming from? If you understand what I'm asking.
So when we initially released, we had Attack of the Greys and Boxcar Willie were the first 2 expansions. And they were the ones that were finished and completed when the game released. And I call them my Grail diaries, like from Indiana Jones. Oh, yeah. So I have 2 of these that I just sit and whatever comes to my head, I just write in there, keep it by my bed. Sometimes I wake up in the night. Sometimes I watch something or see something or hear music or see a piece of art, and I start writing a new visage or some new traits, or here's a scenario. And then I meet with Ben and Connor. We set up at least a monthly meeting, and we have kind of here's our production out through, the end of the year or X amount of months. And most of the stuff I have designed ahead of time, and we sort of pick what we think's interesting that I've started to create, and then it goes into playtesting, and then we just kind of follow that design schedule, but I kind of keep tacking things on, to the end of it as they come up.
So where did the Gourd Reaper come from? Where did the idea for that come from?
So the Gourd Reaper was actually sort of reverse engineered as far as an expansion. So usually I write a little bit of a background, have an idea for a killer or an area of Northwood that I want to explore. I write the plot, design the killer or the story or the character that goes with it, and then Ben starts making model mock-ups. So he does all the sculpting for the game as well. So he does all the art, and he does all the sculpting for the miniatures. That particular one, he was making the miniature and then said, I really want to do this as something for Halloween. Can you write a plot around the Gourd Reaper? And yep, so that's how it started. Miniature first, and then went into the idea of Halloween and sort of trick-or-treating and throwing all that kind of stuff together to create the story to go along with the cool miniature that he had made. And then we added the pumpkins, and that one was just kind of a fun reverse build, sort of.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've noticed, especially like on the Facebook page, people are just running with it, and that's the neat thing about this game is it's open for, lack of a better term, modding. Where people can take it and run with it. There's Night of the Living Dead scenarios that people have been playing around with. I've seen the Creature from the Black Lagoon, Pumpkinhead, which I found a miniature for, which I'm in the process of trying to get painted up just because it's not Pumpkinhead. It would be a great one to do. What do you think about that people are just taking your game and running with it?
I mean, I absolutely love it. That was sort of the dream. Like for me, playing miniature games, there's the thing that always frustrates me when you're playing a game and you get into a situation and you and the other player or players go, it would be really neat if we could, but there's really nothing that you can do to kind of, the rules don't really cover that. Or sometimes they're so boxed in with the rules that it's very hard to kind of figure out a way to create what you want. And one of the things that I really enjoy about the framework and the design for Don't Look Back is that people can do that. They can say, I want to play Night of the Living Dead. And I mean, I feel like it's pretty easy for people to do that. I love to see what people do. I love the terrain that people create. again, obviously the characters have been designed within this fiction of Northwood, but I love it when people paint their maxes in their own high school colors. You know, their jackets and things, they paint them in their own school colors. I think it's amazing, and that's what I want. You know, I want people to be making what they want out of it and taking it and running with it and enjoying what we're creating, but then also using that as the blocks to start from and then do their own thing as well.
So tell me a little bit about your latest expansion, Sideshow Slaughter, and where did that, just tell me a little bit about that one and how that one came to be.
Sideshow Slaughter, we knew that we wanted to do a clown-related something. I hate clowns.
A lot of people do.
So Ben and Connor, this was another one where Ben had started working on the miniature. The miniature was already kind of in production and design, and Ben was like, we really want to do something with clowns. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know about that. But, it is what it is. So we started designing, and I guess this is a great way to sort of talk about, you mentioned earlier, like the rule book isn't optimally laid out, and there's definitely criticisms for how things are placed in the book in the order. And that goes back to when we first started making it. Obviously, it was only X amount of time that we could devote to it as an initial product. We didn't have a lot of play testers because nobody knew me. Black Sight's just jumping off into the miniature world. And we really thought it was going to be, we're probably going to sell 25 or 30. Let's write the best that we can. Let's create the best product we can with the time and the resources we have right now. And since then, we've gotten a lot of really great constructive criticism. In fact, here's my edited copy of the game where I've gone through and been like, here's changes and things that I want to make. And we are going to we'll do a new rule book, but it's the community and the people that we have now that are really pushing the game forward. And since it's come out now, we have this great group of playtesters. This gets back to Sideshow Slaughter because this is where some really awesome things happened. It was originally written so when the game first came out, I only had so many pages that I was allowed to use, so many faces of cards, to create. And that came from like an initial product budget. Like this is the framework we have to work within. But because it's been supported and people have been so vocal in what they want and how they want things to be, that now I'm fortunate enough to not have a limit. Like when I want to create something, I have the number of faces of cards that I want, and I can design what I want. The two plots that come with Sideshow Slaughter were originally written back in you have a front and a back to a card for the expansion. So there was a lot that I wanted to kind of capture in the whole kind of sideshow, clown, horror, fairground experience. And I put those into play testing, and they were okay. I mean, they were all right. They were like grasping it a lot, trying to fit a lot into two plots on essentially two cards. And the play testers were like, it'd be really cool if you could lean into this, and here's what I think of when we think of sideshows. And this would be really neat to sort of explore with a clown killer. And they were kind of completely rewritten. So the game aspect of playing the games and how to play the games really came about from just amazing feedback from play testers and sort of what they were looking for. And then we ended up with, they're two of my favorites, and I don't like clowns, but I think those two plots are two of my favorites that have come out. I think they're really narratively fun. They allow kind of a different interaction between the killer and the characters and the setting. And I think that was like a cool jump off from Curse of Oak Hill. The way the killer interacts with supporting characters, like hunting down supporting characters, is very different than just the killer going after your characters. So they're trying to interject themselves into the plans of the demon. So long story short, that one came about through some really amazing collaboration with the awesome playtesters that we have now.
So I'm actually very excited about that one. And I'm waiting on mine to show up. UPS says tomorrow. Today it's Monday, so hopefully it'll be here. And I really thought that one was cool. So talking about expansions and your Grail Diary, and what can we look forward to in the future? We've got more expansions over the next few months? Are we slowing down? Can you share anything?
Yeah, so we didn't release anything this month because some of the things that are in playtesting right now kind of require a little bit of a different development than what we normally do. So where the card pack came out, where we had the the items and equipment, people really wanted to see those in cards. So we were really exploring who can manufacture those, where can we get those kinds of things done. And they are honestly not cheap to produce, the card-based expansion. So we really kind of had to wait and see sort of what the response was for that kind of before Blacksite would green light like another, expansion card-based sort of a thing. So what I can say is that there is another card-based expansion that's in playtesting. And what that will offer is new ways to explore the kind of the terrain and atmosphere of the table, providing some new narrative elements there and some new rules, which I'm really excited about. And there are some new characters that are currently in playtesting. And a long-time project, which has been slowly building, there was a lot of interest in being able to play Don't Look Back on the big ship that Blacksite Studio makes, the Australis. So there's been a thing that just, I don't know if it'll be the final name, but it's called Terror on the High Seas right now. But it's basically playing games of Don't Look Back on large creepy vessels at sea with your krakens and your sea monsters and your fishmen and your whatnot, sort of related to that as well.
All right, I'm sold. I want that one now. Okay, so, and like I said, I had some notes, but I really just wanted to kind of talk and just get you to tell us about the game itself and what y'all have cooking that's coming. So is there anything else that you want to throw out there? I do have one more question about what you're currently working on, but before we switch over to that, anything you want to throw out there and let us know for Don't Look Back? What's coming? When is version 2 of the rulebook coming?
So honestly, version 2 of the rulebook is not going to be a this summer thing. I'm probably going to. So I'm an elementary school teacher. So this summer, when I am done in the classroom, I'm going to start really diving into that because I also want that to be more of an exploration of lore. There's been a big outcry for more of the lore for Northwood. But we want to start revamping the rules, making some changes, doing some layout things, streamlining some things, making some changes, but the game itself is not really going to change. It's not going to be a whole new game. So my plan is to start really diving into the writing aspect of that this summer. One of the things that I am really looking forward to, and I'm working on also, it's not in play testing yet, but a thing that I'm calling trilogy play. So it will be linked campaign play. So it'll be playing a series of, it will be written and designed for 3 plots to be connected. So you have your trilogy, but there's no reason that you couldn't continue to track the killer and character progress through, as many as you want, until you get bored with it. But the design is that it will be following your group of characters across 3 plots. And in between, you will determine whether the following plot is what I call a pursuit or a return. And a pursuit would be it takes place hours, moments after the first one, and a return could be the months or a year later. and how the characters sort of recover and progress between depends on, how long they really have until the killer shows up again.
Have y'all thought about setting it up in a hospital?
It will be for whatever you want it to be. But we do have, I will say that there is a killer that is a doctor and a scientist. So that is something that is also brewing separately.
Very cool. Very, very cool. So other than Don't Look Back, what else are you working on right now?
Oh my goodness. So there are two things in the playtesting world right now. One of them is Anomaly, which is we call it like, it's the predecessor to Don't Look Back. So when I first started talking to Blacksite Studio, when I got in touch with Ben and Connor, I have another game that's like my baby that I was working on, and I got in touch with Ben, and I was just like, hey, do you have any experience with publishing or having masters made for minis? And he was sort of like, well, actually, there's something that we're looking at doing in the next year. What are you interested in doing? So I have this other game, and we were doing some play testing with that, and Ben and Connor were really excited about working together. So we did Anomaly as a test project. Like, let's see how the three of us work together. Let's do something fun. Let's do space horror. And it's kind of based on the experience of like Aliens and Abyss, that sort of claustrophobic, nobody can hear you scream. You're trapped where you are. You can't really escape. So that was sort of where the framework that then became Don't Look Back, like having this AI anomaly, and you play the crew and it's cooperative. So that's where that started. And I think it was if people purchased their Space Truckers minis, then you got it was like a download of the beta rules for that. And that again got a lot of like, wow, we're really interested in this. Like, people were like, we really like this. What are you going to do with it? So I just recently revisited the game for like a version 2, and expanded it to 4 players. So originally it was 3. You would have 3 crew members. And one of the happy side effects of Don't Look Back and Anomaly, there's a lot of, because it sort of bridges the board game to miniature game world. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people saying, my spouse or my significant other or my kids aren't really into gaming, but they've really been enjoying playing this. And with 3 players, there was sort of like that third wheel. So we wanted to sort of change the rules around, at least at the minimum, to allow 2 couples or 2 groups of people to be able to enjoy the game together. And it also now allows for somebody to play the anomaly. So you can play it as AI, or at the beginning you can decide to have somebody kind of take the reins and play the anomaly.
Yeah, I specifically ordered Space Truckers so that I could get the beta and have read through it a couple times, and I was like, okay, this screams Alien all over the place. Mm-hmm. And I haven't had a chance to get it on the table, but I'm anxious to do that. Because it looks great, and you can see a lot of the similarities between the 2 games. The ISS phase, the Xenos phase, and then the crew phase, which is very similar to the Fright phase, the Killer phase, and the Character phase, and it kind of very similar to that. So it would almost be very easy for, hey, I played Don't Look Back. How easy is it to play Anomaly? Just go into space, and it's you have half the rules there. There's a few other things you need to know. Yeah. So you said there were 2 things. What else are you working on?
There's another game that it's called Breacher, and it is it's a modern combat game where you take on the role of a breacher, which is a highly trained mercenary. And you're being called in for specific contracts when governments want to operate outside the lines, or maybe even the military needs somebody to act quickly and they can't deploy assets. They'll call in a breacher. One player plays as the breacher, the other player plays as the op 4, and it's basically a one versus many. So it's a very kind of John Wick style combat. There is a lot of shooting, a lot of maneuvering, a lot of killing people in melee and using them as body shields as you battle other grunts and then more highly trained mercenaries to the death to secure whatever your contract objective is.
Very cool. I did catch one of your Twitch streams where you were kind of playing through that and kind of talking about it. And that's why I was like, hey, he's working on other stuff. So I wanted to ask you about it. So,
yeah, I'm really excited about that one.
I've kept you a lot longer than I anticipated. So I want to be cognizant of your time. Is there anything you want to throw out there before I let you go?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is just thank you and thank everybody else who's supported us, given us amazing feedback, and made our passion your passion. I mean, the game gets to exist because of people like you who take the time to play it and care about it, and be interested in, its success and its growth. So thank you, and thank everybody who's listening. And if you're interested in playing, you can catch us on one of our streams too. Check it out there.
Matt, thank you very much for your time. Folks, if you've watched this long, thank you for tuning in with us. Don't look back. Black Site Studios, Matt Burns, thank you for taking the time to talk to us. We truly appreciate it. And best going forward. There's only 5 expansions, and I can think of several others myself. So I'm anxious to see what else y'all do with this game and where it goes.
Thank you so much.
So thanks, and have a good night.
You too. Thank you.